Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Today, a shocking revelation. Terrorist leaders set to meet with President Trump, and you won't believe where. Why is this secret meeting now dead in the water? And what was the president thinking? Amber Strong has the provocative details.
The Trump administration says negotiations between the U.S. and the Taliban are dead for now, leaving the president's plan to bring home U.S. troops after 18 years of war up in the air. In a Twitter post, the president said Taliban and Afghan leaders were to visit Camp David Sunday, but that plan was scrapped after the terrorist organization took responsibility for a recent bombing that claimed the life of a U.S. serviceman.
They tried to use terror to improve their negotiating position. We're looking for more than words on paper. We're looking for real, delivered commitment.
The U.S. had reached an agreement in principle with the Taliban that included reducing violence, breaking with al-Qaeda, and keeping Afghanistan from becoming a safe haven for terrorists. While members of both parties agree it's time to bring troops home, many question the president's tactics.
He clearly wanted this showman's moment of having them come to Camp David when he didn't even have a complete ceasefire. This is exactly what he did with Kim Jong-un, bringing a hot dish to the dictator next door.
GOP Congresswoman Liz Cheney tweeting, "Camp David is where America's leaders met to plan our response after al-Qaeda, supported by the Taliban, killed 3,000 Americans on 9/11. No member of the Taliban should set foot there, ever." Former Defense Secretary James Mattis praises the president's efforts, but says it's tough to make a deal with the terrorist regime.
Remember when we reduced nuclear weapons with Russia, we talked about trust but verify. In this case, with this group, I think you want to verify, then trust.
The president wants to keep his promise to begin withdrawing the 14,000 troops still in Afghanistan. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton, who recently returned from Afghanistan, says it's clear the Taliban can wait us out.
I think what we need to do is leave the Afghans alone and say, you can make your government any way you want it. But the minute we perceive you to be a threat to the United States, things are going to start disappearing in your country.
The Taliban is out with a warning saying the end of negotiations will only mean harm for America. Amber Strong, CBN News, Washington.
You know, you ask her about our president, why does he think he can sit down with these people? They had denied women education. They used to have their thought police going through the cities to whip women whose clothing they disagreed with. They're terrible people. And the president thinks he's so charming he can sit down with the devil and change the devil. The devil's not going to change. Those people are not going to change. And to think we could sit down and make a deal with them is just absurd. Well, in other news, thousands of desperate victims are still stranded in parts of the Bahamas. And CBN's Operation Blessing is taking them critical relief supplies. Ephraim Graham has more on that.
Pat, 1 week after Hurricane Dorian pounded the Bahamas, many residents remain stranded with little food or clean drinking water. The death toll now stands at 44 and is expected to rise as the search for survivors continues. CBN's Operation Blessing arrived in Marsh Harbor to help. Workers went to several schools and churches where people were gathering, delivering solar lamps so they could see in the pitch-black darkness, and setting up solar-powered aquifers to provide clean drinking water.
Operation Blessing is going to be here the day after, and we're going to be installing some water purification system. We also have a small medical team that is going to be taking patients and first need of patients with some basic meds that we have. And we're going to be here with water, solar, and you guys. Keep us in prayer. Keep the people, our brothers and sisters of the Bahamas in your prayers.
The team doctor treated 43 patients. The most common issues were trauma and anxiety. Operation Blessing will remain in the Bahamas to help with relief efforts. And as you can imagine, the road to recovery is a long one. Pat?
Operation Blessing has set up headquarters now in Marsh Harbor, the island of Abaco, the Bahamas, bringing desperately needed supplies. We've got medical supplies. We've got an OB team doctor working, solar lights, food, solar-powered aquifers. We're doing what we can. And if you want to help, it's Operation Blessing, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Terrible devastation. It's beyond, it's just unimaginable what happened. My son, Tim, told me that what they had done is build those houses out of wood. And he said in one building that he's familiar with that they did it right. They put blocks, then they fill the blocks in with concrete, then they have rebar inside of in the walls. Wow. And so it'll stand against the hurricane, but that wood is just like little bits of tinder. I saw the same thing in Katrina when I flew over that area in a helicopter some time ago, and it was just like little sticks all over the ground, where these houses had just been destroyed by those hurricanes. It's terrible what happens. But we want to help. We're doing everything. Those people are just desperate, and the death toll is rising. It's unimaginable what they've had to suffer.
You know, there was a pastor on Facebook yesterday who was just so angered by his own government, grieved over what he was seeing people go through. But he said one of the other issues is you can smell decaying bodies because they have not all been found. They've certainly not been buried by this point. So there's the disease issue in this, too. They need help, and now.
Well, speaking of disease, we're going to talk about the disease that's breaking out in one of our cities, actually in Los Angeles. But the U.S. Coast Guard now says that rescuers have been hindered in their search for 4 missing crew members of a cargo ship that overturned near a Georgia port. Imagine, in St. Simon Sound near Georgia.
Pat, it was stranded after a fire on board the vessel, a dramatic rescue scene as the Coast Guard pulled 20 crew members to safety. But at one point, it became too risky to go deeper inside the ship. Coast Guard Captain John Reed said the Golden Ray needed to be stabilized before they can continue searching for the remaining crew members. The Centers for Disease Control and some state health agencies are calling on people to stop using e-cigarettes. Now, this comes as doctors across the country are investigating hundreds of vaping-related illnesses and 5 deaths.
Stop vaping now until further information about what is causing lung damage and death can be understood.
The CDC is investigating 450 cases of serious lung illnesses in 33 states. Lung and chest x-rays show significant damage in people who vaped nicotine or cannabis-related products. Many patients said they used products containing THC, the active chemical in marijuana. But some reported using both THC and nicotine. In response, the American Vaping Association issued this statement. These illnesses and deaths are being caused by THC-containing street vapes, not store-bought nicotine products. Doctors are trying to determine if the illnesses are caused by specific devices, outside products, or contaminants. Pat?
I think they should be banned immediately. The so-called American Vaping Association, give me a break. I mean, they've got an association now backing that stuff up. It's killing people. It's deadly. And it's not a question of what they've put in it. I mean, it's just doing it. Those things are terrible. And it's just, I mean, cigarettes are bad enough, but this stuff is worse. And it should be banned immediately. And I congratulate the state that has banned it. And I think it's Michigan, but that's the first of many that needs to ban it. I mean, it should be just illegal, period. Ephraim.
Pat, I want to turn now to the suicide epidemic among America's veterans. A 2016 government study found 20 military veterans kill themselves every day. One Veterans Network is trying to stop that disturbing trend, with mental health clinics serving post-9/11 veterans and their families for little to no cost. Mark Martin takes us inside one of these clinics.
This is our child care room, and this is for individuals who are being seen for treatment and have children, but they don't have babysitters for them.
Clinic Director Dr. Iman Williams-Christians says providing child care is just one way the new Cohen Military Family Clinic at the Up Center helps veterans and their families get the treatment they need. The Cohen Veterans Network is known for delivering holistic, evidence-based care.
They absolutely work. We've seen tremendous improvement, whether it is improvement in their PTSD symptoms or their depression or anxiety. We actually track that, and so we're able to confidently say that it works.
This clinic provides comprehensive mental health services and is here for the more than 200,000 post-9/11 veterans and military families here in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area alone.
So it's very special to be able to provide a holistic approach to the care. We know that a veteran doesn't serve alone, and we know that families are impacted by military service. Regardless of deployment or not, it's a different lifestyle and it requires a different understanding and a different approach, and that's what our clinics provide.
The stigma around mental health today is just absolutely unacceptable. It's 2019. We've been battling this stigma since we first started these wars in 2001, 2002. And here we are today still fighting that same battle. Enough is enough. We need to treat the invisible wounds of war the same as we do the physical ones.
At this grand opening, Medal of Honor recipient and Cohen Veterans Network Ambassador Sergeant Kyle White talked about the help he received.
Although I was awarded the Medal of Honor, really my story is no different than, hundreds of thousands of others that served before me and continue to serve. I just had a unique experience on one day. But really, it's what happened, pretty much afterward is why I'm here. I realized that I needed to get some help for post-traumatic stress, and I made the decision very early on while still on active duty to, get treatment, get back to better.
2 U.S. representatives from Virginia who are both veterans also acknowledged the great need for facilities like these.
I was injured in Iraq, but mentally, I think the biggest thing for me was grief and loss. I've unfortunately lost a lot of friends in these wars. I was able to lean, however, on other friends to be able to get through those tough times in family. So some people aren't so lucky. So I'm very happy that we have this now in this facility here.
Their core mission is really to be there for the families when the families need them, and they even provide emergency same-day service. So I think that's the most important thing to get out to people in our community, is that they're here as a resource. It's conveniently located, centrally located.
CVN reports that its clinics have helped thousands of veterans and their families heal from wounds that often go unseen and untreated. Mark Martin, CBN News, Virginia Beach.
Extremely important to be there for our veterans. Pat?
I was reading yesterday in the book of Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is speaking for the Lord, and it said, the Lord says this: when I send upon a land drought, a famine, the sword, wild animals, and plague, even though Noah and Daniel and Job were in there praying, they couldn't save their sons and daughters. And I wondered if something may going to happen to America. We have launched a program of destroying the lives of young children, during abortion and even after abortion, that they would be killed. And the blatant disregard for human life has gotten to a crescendo. And I wonder if a holy God is going to do something. And one way he does it is through plague. And we have now learned that something is happening in Los Angeles, an emergence of leprosy. Leprosy, ladies and gentlemen, in the United States of America. Ephraim has more.
Pat, CBN News has reported on the public health crisis in Los Angeles related to its large homeless population. Now, one medical expert warns the city could see an outbreak of leprosy. Los Angeles has some 60,000 homeless people, many living in tent cities contaminated with piles of garbage, human waste, and germ-infested rodents. In a column for the online publication The Hill, Dr. Mark Siegel, a professor of medicine at NYU, writes, these areas are a perfect breeding ground for a disease like leprosy, which is highly contagious and deadens nerves, causing numbness in hands and feet. It can also cause skin lesions and nodules, causing a deformed appearance. High heat throughout the South will make it feel like the height of summer for the next several days. Record highs were recorded over the weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, Charleston, South Carolina as well. This week, dry conditions and sunny weather will stretch from Texas to Georgia. Atlanta is expected to see highs in the mid to upper 90s all week long, and Nashville could come close to breaking its record of 99 degrees. Now, that record was set back in 1887. Normal highs for this time of year range from the middle 80s to the lower 90s. Good idea to stay indoors and stay cool. Pat?
Well, I certainly don't want some of those climate people to start taking away all of our fossil fuels and our gasoline and our natural gas and our coal and our oil and say, well, let's set up wind farms because of global warming. I think it has to do a lot with what's going on with the sun, has to do with far distant stars, has to do with the shift of our planet. There are a whole lot of things that cause global warming besides carbon emissions. So let's be careful. We don't listen to the hue and cry of those who say we need a big government program to restrict the rights of Americans. You know,
we've got enough of those that
we've had
aren't working well.
A false science, and you know. But I've been reading Hugh Ross's book about the planet we live in, and when you look at the fact that, you know, we've still got maybe 10% of our planet is under an ice sheet. We have huge ice in the Tibetan Plateau. We have huge ice in Antarctica. We have huge ice in Greenland. And this ice has a tendency to keep the climate regular and cool. And you know, the temperature may go up a few degrees, but it's not going to last. So at least that's my fervent hope right now. All right.